Have you ever wondered what it's like to work in law enforcement? Here on Behind the Star, we share stories about the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Central Florida's largest law enforcement agency. From forensics to dispatch to the deputies on patrol, we'll talk to the brave men and women who protect our community. This is Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to Behind the Star, the official podcast of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. My name is Jon Busdeker, your host here at Behind the Star, and I'm excited about today's episode because we don't typically time these as well in previous episodes. So we timed this one perfect because this week we have Master Deputy Timothy Horne on the show. He is one of our sketch artists here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and all the places that we are, and I highly suggest that you do follow us there, you may have seen Deputy Horne and myself doing a video about his talents as a sketch artist. If you missed that, go check it out. We had a really great time doing it. Basically, I challenged Deputy Horne to a sketch test, and he passed with flying colors. I won't give away all the details because I want you to go look at it. But as I said, typically we don't get to time these very often where I release a video and then we have the person in the video on the show. And so I'm really excited that this all worked out. So Master Deputy Timothy Horne, welcome to Behind the Star.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So the video that we did, as I said, it turned out well. I showed off some of your talents as a sketch artist, but maybe explain sort of your role here at the Sheriff's Office. What exactly is a sketch artist and what do you do?
Primarily, we assist the detectives in solving their cases. So they'll meet with the victims, obviously, and they'll determine whether or not the victims can identify a suspect in their particular case. And if the victim can identify a suspect and they feel like they would recognize them if they saw them again, then they'll generally call in myself, the sketch artist, to assist.
So I want to explain this whole concept as well, because as I said in the video, I kind of went over this process, but if you missed it, you didn't get to hear how it works. So let's take that step by step. So let's say there is a crime committed and there's a witness to it or possibly a victim, either one, and that person says, you know what, I can sort of recognize that person. I have some details. How does that work? So they come meet with you or they talk to you on the phone, or how does that process begin?
Yeah, so the detective will initially send, and if it's something that's just happened and they need an immediate response, they'll call the communications center, and the communications dispatcher will call me and have me get into contact with the detective, and I'll find out a little bit about the incident and whether or not I need to respond immediately. Generally, if they're calling the dispatcher, then I probably will have to respond immediately.
Is that because people's memories are just better? The closer it happens to the incident, you just have a better memory of it?
That's definitely the case, but also it might be a high profile type incident that's going to require us to get the sketch out to the media immediately.
Okay, and that makes sense. You know, maybe there's some sort of crime that happened that the person is still on the loose, that is a big threat to the community, and we want to get that person's face out there in case somebody recognizes that person.
Exactly. And other instances where there's not as much an immediacy to getting the sketch taken care of, they will contact the supervisor over at forensics, and then the supervisor will in turn send me an email. There used to be 3 artists.
Okay, we're working on trying to get more here. I mean, people retire, people change jobs, all that. I know you're maybe the sole one right now. We got some other folks in training, and so we do have more in the works. But yeah, you're sort of the go-to guy right now.
Right. So the supervisor will contact me. Sometimes the detectives will send me an email, but the proper channel is to contact the supervisor, and the supervisor will contact me, and they will provide me with the witness or victim's contact information. So I will contact the witness or victim and arrange a meeting, whether that be at their residence if they feel more comfortable there, or if they'll come out to a sheriff's office facility, and I'll do the sketch there. But I'll meet with the witness or victim at the time that we decide, and it will generally take me about 30 minutes to an hour in meeting with them. And what that entails is me giving a brief interview, and I don't generally get into the case so much, but I'll just ask them to describe the individual. At that time, they go through an FBI facial identification handbook. What that is a book that contains numerous mugshots, different head shapes, different eye shapes, eye types, noses, mouths, hairstyles, etc. And I have the victim or witness go through each aspect of the face, of those facial features, and pick out what most closely relates to the suspect.
Okay, and then you put all that together, and I'm going to get into that. I want to go back a little bit, though. So that first sort of initial interview, what are you asking them? Are you asking them, I mean, how do you even start? What do you start by asking?
Well, I basically I have a form that has their basic information. It's the location where the interview is conducted, their name, the time that we start, the detective in the case number, just basic information, maybe their email address. And again, I don't really get into the case, but I just try to just have some general conversation to kind of relax them and put them sort of at ease.
But then eventually you start asking, how tall was the person? How,
Yes.
Were they medium build? Were they 58 or 55 years old? Were they 25 years old? And you ask all that because all those things, before you even start getting into the eyes and the nose and the ears, all of that can affect how you draw a face.
Exactly. So I'll get a general description. Like you mentioned, the height of the individual and their weight, because generally, based on those things, you can kind of determine what the head shape is going to actually look like.
Yeah, a 350-pound guy has a different head than a 100-pound woman, right?
Exactly. And then we get the ranges, because people won't they won't have the exact age of a person or the exact height, but we get generalities. So I want to know if he's between 20 to 25, 25 to 30, that sort of thing. That's also going to determine maybe the amount of aging that I add to the face.
Yeah.
Maybe some more forehead lines if he's 40 or older.
Yeah, I mean, an 18-year-old looks different than a 55 or an 80-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah. Despite how much plastic surgery you might get, generally older people have more wrinkles.
Exactly.
And we keep saying he, and you explained this during our test that I did, is that yes, women commit crimes, but I think more than likely when you do your sketches, it's generally men.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I can't recall if I've even done a female suspect. Maybe I think I did do at least one.
Okay, how
recall.
long you been doing sketches for the sheriff's office?
Going on 5 years. I think January will be 5 years.
Okay, so 5 years. So in that time, it just doesn't come up that much that women commit as many crimes as men. At least we don't sketch them as much. I know you've maybe done some missing persons or some maybe victims of crimes that
Yes.
were women. But generally, so I think a lot of this through this podcast, we might say he a lot.
Right.
Once again, it's not that women don't commit crimes. It's just you don't draw them as often.
Exactly.
And so once you get the build and the age and the height and all of that, you mentioned this earlier. You go through this book, and this is part of this process where you start looking at different facial features. And this book is like an inch or two thick.
Yes.
And as you said, it's all mugshots of different people. And so how does that work? Do you start with the eyes? Do you start with the ears? And or do you start with the head? Where do you even begin?
I start with the head shape. Even though I don't draw the head shape first, I do start with the head first. And Maybe that's just because that's how I learned from the person who taught me forensic art. So I'll do the head shape, and then I'll just set that aside. We document the page number and the image of the head that the witness describes.
Yeah, some people have long heads, some people have wide heads, some people have round heads, oval heads. There's just all these different shapes of heads.
Exactly, and it's something I don't think many people realize, but when they look into the book, they see that people actually have triangular shaped heads and little small round heads or large rectangular heads. So yes, that's true.
And so when they start going through these books, and if you get a chance, go check out our video, because I had to do this, and I had to go through the book. And in the video, I had a celebrity in mind. And so the person that I chose, I've seen him a number of times. I'll give you a hint. It's Bruce Willis. And so I've seen him in movies, and so I know what he looks like. It wasn't an event that happened for 10 seconds in my life, and I've never seen this person again. So I was already at an advantage, I think, than most victims of crimes or witnesses to crimes. And I'm saying that because even I had a hard time going through these books and saying, all right, those are the eyes of Bruce Willis, and that's the mouth of Bruce Willis. So I can imagine the people that go through this after maybe seeing something traumatic or being part of something traumatic, it can be difficult to pick the correct eyes.
Exactly. That's the thing about it. You see this person briefly, and if there's a weapon involved, you probably only focused on the weapon. And you probably saw that larger than what it actually was. So we ask a lot of a witness, but surprisingly, what I've come to realize is that as you go through the book, you might not think you can do a good job, but when you see the actual body part or feature that is associated with the suspect, it kind of jumps out at you. Yeah, so when you're going through the eyes, pages of eyes, and then surprisingly, you'll pick out these set of eyes that you think, look exactly like the ones that the guy had. So.
And I think you told me this as well, that sometimes it's not exactly trying to get the perfect eyes. It's almost eliminating the ones that aren't the right eyes. I keep saying eyes, but it could be the nose, the mouth, the ears, the mustache, the not mustache. So as you said, it's almost eliminating all the things it's not those ears, it's not that nose, and maybe it is these 7 noses or 4 noses. It could be that, and they're all pretty close. Obviously, it might not be perfect, but you're eliminating all the other things.
Exactly. Yeah. If he had a longer, narrow nose, you're not going to be looking for one that's thicker, or upturned and that sort of thing. And if he did have an upturned nose, he or she had an upturned nose, then that's going to be something that you would probably realize. Mm-hmm. So if you don't pick the exact nose, it's going to be slightly turned up. It might be narrow, or for eyes, you can probably recall if they were squinty or bulging, mm-hmm. Or if his lips were thicker or thinner. So that's like a more minimalistic approach to it, but in general, what we like to do is eliminate who it's not.
Yes.
So we like to aid the detective in his case. This is just one piece of the puzzle in him solving the case. So when the suspect is ultimately caught, we can look at the sketch and say, okay, it's a black guy or a white guy, and he's got a crew cut or dreads, or his complexion is very light or dark, or, so we want to be very close, in the ballpark.
And so when you're doing this, and we should say we do live in 2020 right now, and so you're not drawing these on a piece of paper with a pencil and eraser.
No, we can do that. The general practice was to sketch the person on a sketch pad.
Okay.
But ultimately, when we turn it in, we want to digitally enhance it. So we'll maybe scan. This is how I learned it, to scan the image onto your computer and then just enhance it, whatever changes you need to make that the witness tells you need to be made. But I just kind of cut to the chase and just go right to the digital pad.
Yeah. So you bring your laptop, or you have a laptop, and then you have, as you said, like a digital pad and a digital pen, a digital stylus, and that's how you do it. You're not drawing with a pencil.
Exactly.
Did you learn with a pencil though?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. That's how we And it's still, I guess some artists will still do it that way. I mean, some of the artists we had here previously would just draw the image on a sketch pad and scan it, and that would be the one that they would submit to the detective for the bulletins that they put out.
So I want to come back to the sketch artist, but I want to ask you, how did you end up here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office? Because you've been here several years.
Yes, I was in the military, in the Marine Corps for 6 years, and my last duty station was in Virginia, or in Washington, D.C. at headquarters Marine Corps, Washington, D.C., Maryland area. And I knew my enlistment was ending, so I needed a job, obviously, and I went into law enforcement there. It was a natural transition because that's obviously paramilitary. So I ended up at the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office. I worked there for almost 3 years. And before I got too comfortable there in that cold weather, I decided I wanted to look around and maybe come back to Florida, which is where I grew up.
Where did you grow up? Here in Central Florida or somewhere else?
Well, Miami up until about the 4th grade, maybe. And then we moved to Atlanta. But I had fond memories of Florida, so I wanted to come back here.
Okay, and so you applied to the Orange County Sheriff's Office and got a job and started?
Applied to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I was approximately 98. And yes, got a job, been here going on 23 years.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
But you always, so right now we're at the Truancy Center. Is that the name of this place?
The Alternative Center for Truancy.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And we're on Central, kind of in the Paramore area here in Orlando.
Yes.
But you haven't always been here, have you? This hasn't always been your job here.
No.
What's your regular job? Because I should say you're not a full-time sketch artist, although it might feel like it sometimes. That's not your full-time job.
Right. No, just a regular deputy sheriff. I happen to be assigned to the truancy suppression unit.
So what does that mean? What do you do?
So in the truancy suppression unit, we pretty much look for children between the ages of 12 and 16 years old who are not in school during school hours.
Oh, skipping school.
Skipping school,
All right.
basically like the old time truant officers. So we look for these individuals, and if we see maybe they're on their way to school, we will we'll approach them, find out why, what they're up to, why they're late maybe, and then we can take them to school.
Okay.
Now, if they happen to be walking in the opposite direction of school and have no intention of going, or hanging out up to no good, maybe some illegal activities in a park or wherever, then we can bring them here to the Truancy Center on Central, and then I will make contact with the parents and have them picked up.
Okay. All right. I assume that's a full-time job during normal times.
It is during normal times when kids actually go to school, and obviously summertime there's no need for truancy, so we generally work in patrol.
Okay. All right. So you go back. Is there a certain sector you work in?
Or
just all over where they need you?
Generally, my unit we're countywide.
Okay.
So we patrol maybe areas that need more attention.
Okay.
Or during these times, we did food distribution at some of the schools, help hand out personal protective equipment to people. Mm-hmm. So that sort of thing, just helping during these pandemic times.
So the sketch artist, you said earlier you've been doing this about 5 years. How did you get turned on to being a sketch artist? It was just something you were interested in?
Well, I've always been interested in it. I've drawn all my life. Before going into the military, I was an art major.
Really? Did you go to school for it?
I went to South Carolina State.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. I only did a year and decided to enlist. But I knew Arthur Jones, who is one of the previous sketch artists, and I had been here several years, and I found out that he did it, and I told him I was interested in being an artist, and asked how I could get into it. His recommendation was to get in touch with a full-time artist. Arthur was in economic crime, so he did it part-time as well. But we had a full-time artist here, Stephen Fusco. He said get a hold of him, and maybe show them some of your work and see how it goes. So I did that, but didn't, I think Deputy at the time, Deputy Fusco, liked the work, but just, that was it. Didn't hear much else. Years later, about 6 years ago, 5.5, 6 years ago, Deputy Fusco was retiring. So at that time, he told Arthur Jones again to, just let's check the agency because I'm leaving. You're going to need some help, so see if there's anybody else interested in art. So that's when we call him AJ. He contacted me. And again, I got with Deputy Fusco and let him know I was interested. And he wanted to know, man, you've been here all this time. Why hadn't you ever said anything?
He said I did.
So, because with just the two artists at the time, they have to, we're getting called out and everything, so we're on a rotation. So it just helps to have more artists in the arsenal, whenever you need the help. And so, the requirement was for me to turn in some portraits just to see if I had artistic ability.
Yeah, mine would look terrible. They would just be stick figures, and they'd be looking for stick figures all around Orange County.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting if they caught the guy and he was actually a stick figure, right?
That's right.
But so I turned in the portrait because he's not teaching. He made it very clear during the training, I'm not teaching you how to draw. I'm just teaching you how, the forensic art procedures that we will employ. So I turned in the portraits. They were acceptable. I think the chain looked at them and they were acceptable. So I sat with him for 40 hours one-on-one and gained the training. And after that, they turned me loose.
Okay. And so the training, like you said, you have to draw. Like they're not going to show you how to draw. They're not going to teach you how to do that. But the training you said was about a 40-hour training. Is that what you do now? Is that how we get new artists? They have to go through sort of the same training as you did?
Yes, very similar. So we'll do several portraits, and we talk about the digital program that we use to enhance the sketches. So we go through the procedures of setting that up, doing some portraits, just that sort of thing, and the requirements of. So we're required to do at least 2 sketches per month. So whether they be real sketches for real cases, if we don't have real cases to work on, then we have to do practice sketches just to stay up to date.
And with the training, as I said, I know we have 1 or maybe 2 going through it right now. Do they go with you and sort of see how you do it so they get some real world experience before we turn them loose?
They will. So what we're doing with these individuals is 2 weeks of that drawing and learning the program and that sort of thing. And after this phase, they're going to go out on actual calls and do the sketches right along with me, just as if they were doing the actual sketch for the case.
So when you going back to the sketches, so after you get maybe their eyes and their nose and their ears, is the person who was the witness, are they watching this whole process and they say, okay, like that looks good, but maybe the nose needs to be a little bigger, a little higher, a little over? Are they kind of watching over your shoulder?
Yes. I'll have them sitting close to me. During the initial phase, I'll just draw it based on what the features that they gave me. So they pick the eyes and nose and mouth of the suspect. I'll draw that with the head. I'll ask him what style of hair he had, and I'll put some hair on him or her, and then I'll show that. I won't get too detailed with that particular sketch initially. So before I get too in depth, I'll show it to them and have them make whatever changes they need to make.
Okay.
And the changes could be numerous. It might not only be the eye. They might say move the eyes closer together or a different nose, and sometimes they'll actually say, no, not like that. So I'll show the nose in the book. I said, well, this is a nose that you selected. I think it kind of looks like the one I drew. So would you like to change the nose? And so at that time, sometimes they'll change the features.
Is it frustrating for you when they want to change everything, or is that just part of the process?
It's part of the process, and that's why I really like doing it on the pad,
The digital pad.
the digital pad, as opposed to the sketch pad, because it would really be frustrating, I think, if I had to just erase everything, as opposed to I'm erasing it digitally, but it's just a lot easier to erase it and reapply it.
Yeah. So you were saying that first sort of initial sit down can take 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, depending on sort of the person, the witness. But then you go back. I mean, after they said, all right, well, that's looking pretty good. Then you continue to work on your own and start filling more stuff in, correct?
Exactly. So I'll do it once I have a very general idea of what the person looks like. I mean, they might tell me a certain hairstyle. I'll do a kind of like a vague hairstyle, but when I'm there on my own, I might do more details to make it look like actual hair. And what we used to do, we used to take the witness's email address and go back and forth with them for whatever changes that needed to be made. We had an incident where I think one of the witnesses or victims put the unfinished, well, I think it might have been close to finished, the sketch out to the media. Prior,
and you might not have been done yet.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I don't know that I was totally done. It was acceptable to them. But the thing is, we need to get it to the detective to put it out in a bulletin before it goes directly to the media.
Okay. All right.
So they stopped that practice to where we needed to just meet with the witness each time they needed to make a change.
Okay.
So to kind of bypass that, having to go back and forth, I kind of like get the majority of the sketch done while I'm still meeting with the witness.
Okay. And so once they've maybe gone back and forth with you and you've made some changes, is it their final call to say, all right, that's the person that did that, or that person looks close? I mean, is it they're the ones that makes that final decision?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They make the final decision. And I really like for them to, there's been times where witnesses have gotten emotional and they said, yes, that's him, and there's other times where they say, yeah, that's pretty close, but I can't really tell you what else to change about it, and that's fine.
And like we said, I mean, these can be traumatic experiences. They could be experiences that happen in 10 seconds. I mean, it could have been an armed robbery, and you, like you said, you maybe your focus is on the gun or the knife or whatever, and you're not exactly like, well, their nose needs to be a half an inch up or a half an inch down.
Exactly.
But you told me this during our process that you're not drawing a portrait, you're drawing a sketch, a composite sketch, and you're trying to get their likeness and
yes.
close as you can, but it might not be 100% perfect.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. And what we hope to do is rule people out. Mm-hmm. We want to rule someone out who looks nothing like the actual suspect.
Yeah. And so let's say the process is over. The witness, the victim says that's the person, or I think that's the person, or close to that person. What happens then? Do we release it as the sheriff's office? We send it to the media? What's typically the process then?
So what happens then is I will go ahead and send it to the requesting detective. That detective, either he or she or an analyst over in CID, the Criminal Investigative Division, will put it on a bulletin. And I believe at that point, the bulletin is released. I know it's released agency-wide.
Yeah, we'll start getting it out there, I think.
Yeah, and then I guess it gets released to the media. I'm not totally sure about that.
And then hopefully tips will start coming in. I saw that guy, or I know somebody that looks like that, or my neighbor looks like that person. And so that's kind of the goal. I mean, overall, that's the goal of the sketch artist and the sketches, is to generate interest in a case and also hopefully lead to tips and then hopefully an arrest of the person that did the crime. And so, and we've talked about this a little bit before, and I know you don't always follow up, but you have seen instances where the person that you drew and the person that we arrested or charged, you've seen the comparisons, and I assume you do a great job at it.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't always get the follow up, but I have seen some where I was pleased, not just in my ability, but in the witness's ability to convey what this person looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had an elderly female who was able to describe the suspect in a distractions theft, in which they had pretended to do some services on her home and actually went in and burglarized her residence. And she did a fantastic job of identifying someone, and it looked almost exactly like the person she ended up selecting. So,
Yeah, because afterwards, I mean, so let's go even farther. So let's say we put a sketch out there, we arrest somebody for that crime, and then it has to go to a lineup, correct?
yes. So they'll give the witness an opportunity to go in and look at actual photos of individuals who look a lot. They'll put the suspect in the lineup along with individuals who look similar to that individual, and then it's up to the witness to select the person who committed the act.
Well, Tim, I want to say I loved doing the sketch test with you. I was super impressed by your talents. I think anybody who watches that video will be impressed by your talents. And I said this on camera, and I'll say it again here on the podcast. I'm so happy that we have you here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's just great being able to do something you love and have it be your livelihood. So I enjoy it.
All right. Well, go check out Tim's work. Maybe you'll see it on the news, or maybe you'll see it on our Twitter, our Instagram, or our Facebook. He usually signs his sketches. You'll see it on sort of the shoulder of the person. It'll say the word Horne with an E. And so if you see that, you know it's a Deputy Timothy Horne original. So Deputy Horne, thank you so much for being on Behind the Star, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Star. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Also, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Jon Busdeker, and this is Behind the Star.